struggle.
Laura's also
or do you think we can continue, or will we give another minute or two?
I think they will join us later. We can maybe continue because it's 10 o'clock now.
Thank you, Kolelwa. Morning, everybody. I would just like to thank everybody who is here on our online meeting today. Some of us had a bit of a struggle to get in, but yeah, that is the time we live in, and we learn with the time as we go on. And it is a challenging time for some, but it's good. We have to learn and we have to progress as we go along. I just want to find out if you have any apologies for today. That is for LISLIG and for HELIG.
Matilda, I had one apology from Zuki in Kwakwa.
Any other apology? Okay, if you remember of any apology, just write me or Anna Marie or Kolelwa a message that we can note of. From what we're going to do is we're quickly going to run through LISLIG's minutes, and then we're giving Kolelwa a turn, and then we run through HELIG's minutes, and after that we will give Mr. Charlie Molepo a chance for his speech. Is Mr. Charlie on our group already? Doesn't look like that.
I am.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to. Oh, I see there's your name. I'm very glad that you are also here. Welcome, and we are looking forward to your talk. Okay. Under Personalia for LISLIG, I would like to congratulate Rian, who's having his birthday now in July. We really hope, I don't think Rian is on our group, but still congratulations. We really hope it will be a good day or a good month and a good year. And then we also have Juliette Kilian, who is from Bethlehem. She's also having a birthday in July. Congratulations, and may the year get better and better to both of you. Do we have any points that you would like to add to the agenda for LISLIG? Is there anyone who wants to add something? Okay, I take it then we move on to the minutes. The minutes was sent out together with the invitation. The opening, it's the minutes of the meeting that was held on the 25th of February at the University Library, and the topic for the day was cataloguing. Is there any comments on the minutes? Is there any correction? Okay, I take it. I hope, can everyone hear me? It is very silent on this.
We can hear you.
Yes, Matilda, we can.
Okay, because oh, please interact with me. It's very scary to look at the screen and you don't get any feedback and you don't see any faces. Is there any input on the minutes that was held on the 20th February 2020? The only thing I can report on is that on that meeting we said that on the 2nd of April we will have a meeting and the topic would be ADD or HDHD, and I was really looking forward to that meeting, but then unfortunately Corona came and visited us, and the meeting had to be cancelled. So yeah, that's the. I just want to make a comment on that. Is there anyone with any other comment? Okay, can I ask, can we adopt this minutes?
Yes, I second you.
Thank you,
I suggest
Dimpo.
we can.
Okay, thank you, Dimpo. Do we have a seconder for the minutes? I don't know, can you
Seems like your dog is seconding.
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
can I take it that you can second the minutes?
Yes, yes, I'll do so.
Thank you so much. Okay, Kolelwa, then I give back to you and you can do the part for HELIG, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Matilda. So with HELIG, what happened last year, late last year, our chairperson resigned. So then the chair-elect had to take over. So I was the chair-elect at that time. So we had our committee meeting this year on the 27th of January. But in that meeting, it was a planning meeting of what we were going to be doing. So we were going to be meeting in March. To plan an event that we're planning also in March, but because of Corona, then a lot of things happened, and we could not continue with that event. And that is where we were planning to have everyone in HELIG to participate. So because of that, then we did not have a meeting. So we are starting, in fact, on a clean slate with HELIG, with in terms of like what we have to do and continue forward for the rest of the year. But yeah, so hopefully everything, after everything, you know, when we come back, then we'll have a formal meeting with everyone in HELIG. So I'm just continuing today. I don't know if Anna Marie, everything that I've said, because she also part of the committee meeting.
Kulewa, I have nothing to add at this stage. I think that's fine. Many people cannot connect to these meetings, so we can't really have a very formal HELIG meeting. So when we can meet in person again, I second that. Then we just take it from there.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna-Marie. Well, today is all about the 4IR in libraries. And today, this speaker is perfect for what we're talking about. I hear other people are saying that they are struggling to connect to the meeting. And I hope after this meeting, it will be easier after all the points that we'll be getting, because this is the route that we're moving into, the 4IR. And we've got a perfect speaker for that, just to read what he has been doing throughout these years and what he has been serving in, to get more information of why he is a perfect speaker today. So our speaker today, he is the information professional for over 30 years, a qualified educator and assessor. He has worked at the following institutions: Vista, UN, UJ, UKZN, UKS, and Bertram Books in UK. He has served from 2004 to 2005 as an executive member of LIASA and chair of Continuing Professional Development. In 1998 to 2004, he served at the National President Union of Democratic University Staff Union, UDUSA, and he was a council member of Vista University between 2000 and 2002. He was the Librarian of the Year in Gauteng South in 2007, a board member and chair of HR Committee, ETDP, CETA 2000 to 2004 and 2010 to 2012. He was also a board member of COSLC between 2004 and 2005, an executive member of LIASA and chair of HELIG and Continuing Professional Development between 2004 to 2005. He has done a lot of things, including designer and facilitator in the European Union Department of Education Higher Education Libraries Program, and also a member of SAQA Standard Generating Body Library and Information Services between 2002 to 2010, and part of the team of ETDP CETA that designed the Library Assistant Occupational Qualification for QCTO, registered by SAQA 2015. And recently he completed the Quality Assessment Standards Assessment for Library Assistant Occupational qualification. And today, the 15th of July, he is the speaker of our combined event. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Mr. Charlie Mullago to give us a presentation on the 4IR in libraries.
Thank you. I almost didn't recognize the person you're talking about. Good morning, colleagues. We obviously have challenges. We have here in our suburb load shedding. I hope my battery life lasts me the duration of the presentation. One of the other things that has happened, because maybe if you are watching news, you might have realized that people are beginning to get, criminals are actually getting intelligent. Now they started stealing batteries from the antenna of service providers. So once you have load shedding, it also affects even our service providers, especially because people are starting to steal batteries. You know, now the people, they steal almost everything. It's one of those things. It's one of the presentation today. We are going to look at 4IR. I know that my colleagues would know that it's one area that we, unfortunately, as a country, we do not have a choice. It's already happening. You know, whether we like it or we don't, we are already in that environment where you are in 4IR. Can I just get an indication if you are seeing my screen?
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you then. So what I'll try and run through it, because like I indicated earlier on, my battery on my laptop, it's not full. I hope they promised it would come back by 12. We should have finished by then. I hope it lasts me. Thank you very much for inviting me. What I'm going to share with you is the whole concept of 4IR. 4IR, as I've just taken one of the most common definition of 4IR. It is the current and developing environment in which disruptive. You would see there that I've written disruptive in solid, just to show the importance of that word, in which disruptive technologies and trends such as Internet of Things, robotics, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence are changing the way we live and work. So what is important here, like I've indicated earlier on, is the word disruptive. So because technologies has always been there technologies have been with us for over 2 decades. They change in form and matter. But the technologies that we're talking about now in 4IR is disruptive technology, right? Maybe just to give you a brief background in terms of the revolution, the Industrial Revolution. The very first Industrial Revolution happened in around 1784, where we were looking at the introduction of mechanization with the help of steam. So those of you, unfortunately, your HELIG chair is too young to even have seen it. We used to have what we call steam trains, you know, where maybe if you watch those old movies, you would see them, the train driver was not pushing buttons, but he was loading coal into a burner, where now those coal would warm water, and then there will be steam, then there will be a movement of the train. That's how, that was the beginning of the first industrial revolution, where it was water and steam that was moving in the mechanism, what was then a mechanical. So that was the technology, the first technology that was happening. In that first revolution, everything was about steam and water. So you can even see, if you can put your kettle, your pot on top of stove, and you put water, and when that water evaporates and you get a lot of steam, you'll see the pot doesn't stay on the surface of the stove. It starts moving. That's the first revolution. And one thing that you must observe that is going to go on through all the revolutions is the loss of work for people who are doing manual labor. So in that first revolution now, all of a sudden, because people were pushing things to move, all of a sudden things started to move on their own without being pushed. So it means those people who are doing work of pushing now will be without work. They need to learn a new skill to work with this. Then we had a second revolution around the 1800s. The second revolution, it introduced what we now know as electricity. As we have heard, I was complaining that we are having a load shedding. So from moving from steam and water, the second revolution was about electricity. Then we saw the development of electricity. Obviously, water and coal were still used in the development of electricity. Unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately in South Africa, we still rely much more on coal and steam to also to have electricity. That's why that's why now we have a lot of breakdowns on our coal generation, because if something gets burned all the time, it gets old and then it damages easily. So it's a high maintenance environment. But what electricity did is that it made it possible for a lot of things to happen in a much more simpler and faster way. You know, you were able to warm things, you were able to light, we were able to start developing some technologies, but it was just electricity. So now cooling and heating and lighting became much more easier. So a lot of things that was used during the early 17 were abandoned. We started doing away with petrol and paraffin and a lot of what we use for heating and lighting. And it was replaced by electricity. But obviously you would understand that this was just a revolution. It doesn't mean that electricity kicked off. For most of us in South Africa, for instance, around the 60s, the 70s, we didn't even have electricity, but electricity was developed in the 1800s. But in the 1900s, some of us didn't even have the electricity. So you must understand that the revolution will start, but it doesn't mean all of us has to be in that area, in that era when it's developed. You would see now as we start talking about 4IR that some of us, it will take us decades to reach a certain era of a revolution. The third revolution, it was the development of technology, IT systems and automation. That's when we started seeing machines working, replacing a lot of manual work. Now, what happens, if you go to any industry in the country or anywhere, you would see that now what you have is only one person operating a machine and everything runs. So somebody puts a program, he just programs to say, I require you to fill these bottles with 750 millimeter of this liquid and mix with 10 millimeter of this liquid, and then it should move from this belt to the next one to be filled, and then this one will close. So that's the part, that's the IT part, the automation part. In the library sector, for instance, those of us some of us who started in the industry in the late 60s, early 70s, you'll remember that we relied on what we called library cards. When we catalog books, we would then put those cards, write the information. So what we now call a catalog, it was a catalog in a card. And we would sort those cards according to the way the books will sort them in the shelves. So everything was done manually. You would write it down. So with the third revolution, what happened? We then saw the development of library systems. Amongst the first ones in the country, we remember systems like Eureka and Eurodite. Those were the earliest systems in South Africa where we saw libraries now automating their work. So now what that meant, it meant all those people who were typists, you remember those cards, somebody must sit down and type the metadata, or what we then call catalog record. They would type it in. While there will be a professional librarian who would catalog the item, but you would have the non-professional person or somebody who's a typist who can type certain characters per minute, who would then type the card. So you may find that per one professional librarian, you would have 2 or 3 typists who would then do the typing. So that meant, with the advent of technology, of the library system, it meant now, all of a sudden, those 3 people are no longer required to type. Because now what we were doing, I remember with the development of the first system, what we're using, what we call is SA Mark and Unimark, which was the universal mark record. Those records, we then started seeing the professional librarians themselves punching in or putting in the data. That was the movement from the second industrial revolution, where we were moving away from typing. Remember, typewriters, your stencil. I don't know if some of you still remember stencil, those who are of our age. You would type on something, there was no photocopier machine. It was, you would type something, it's like it has a ribbon. You would type over it. If you want to duplicate, then you will take that stencil, you put it in a very big machine, and then you roll it through. Keep on rolling it. As you roll it through, as it goes through, it's more like, that's why it was called a stencil, because what was written on the, what you used to type on, it would then go over to a paper, and that's how we would duplicate the paper. But with the third revolution, we then saw the advent of photocopier machines, where you just play something and then it gets copied. So that's how these revolutions have moved over time. So now in the library sector, then, when we then have those library systems, that's when we started now putting whatever, any information we would be able to describe an item electronically. So a person now can sit at home and search for an item and be able to see that this library does have an item and it is available. If it's checked out, you can see when it's coming back. All those came with the third industrial revolution, which happens around the 1970s and or so. Now, we are into the fourth industrial revolution. And most of us have not really come into grips with the reality of fourth industrial revolution, because it's happening now, but most of the things that some people identify as fourth industrial revolution actually belongs to the third industrial revolution. Let me talk to you about some of the fourth industrial revolution tools that you can already see in libraries. It's what we call systems operability, interoperability. What happens now? For instance, you would see that if somebody gets a library card, the person who makes the library card, actually it's not even a library card. Let's say a company card or your university card or your school card. That card is done by one company that maybe it's for security reasons, so that we are able to identify that this is Charlie, is allowed to enter the gate. Some of them, they've got the microchip, you can swipe them. Some have already got what you call a radio frequency identification. So you can just scan them and they will automatically recognize that this is an authentic person. Then you are allowed to enter the premises. Remember, this card is for security. But all of a sudden, the same card, I would take the same card, I would be able to authenticate the user when it comes to the library now. So as you can see now, the difference here, while the card was for security, because the system allows it to operate in different systems, the same card can now authenticate this person to say this person is a correct person to enter the library in the security part. But at the same time, remember the security gate at the library is different from the library system. The library system is another system from another company. But the same card that was not made by the people who made the library system will be able to be scanned by another scan in the library system to recognize that this person is an authentic person, and then I can issue a book. So now I don't have to put in the details of this person because the details are already in that microchip within that card. So that system's operability, what it means is that systems can talk to one another. They don't need to be in the same place. This is the same thing that you can see now, for instance, with the 350. People were complaining, or it's happening with NEFSAS. Those coming from higher education and FET colleges, where when a student applies for a NEFSAS, right, he applies on a NEFSAS system. But the NEFSAS system is linked to another system, which is totally different in Department of Home Affairs. It then picks up that Charlie is the son of Robert Molepo and Julia Molepo. Then the very same system, it goes to SARS. SARS system says Julia Molepo and Robert Molepo. Julia Molepo is a lecturer at Forte, is earning 400,000. Robert is a CEO of this company, is earning 400,000. Therefore, this person does not qualify to get a NEFSAS bursary. So as you can see, only you punched in the information once on a NEFSAS application, but your data is compared with other data in other systems. So Home Affairs will pick up that this person is, these are his parents, and then they can compare to SARS to say these parents are paying a pay as you earn, and they are earning so much per annum. Therefore, it means this person. So that's how the same thing has happened now with the 350. People simply tried their luck and applied for SASSA funds. And what the system does, it goes to Home Affairs, it checks, no, this person does exist. Maybe you take an ID of your dead uncle, you apply for 350, it picks up your date. You apply, but you get a pay, you pay as you earn, it picks up that no, you actually earn a salary. So it means you are working. You apply, your employer pays you UIF, 1% UIF, it picks it up that no. So that system operability, that's what I'm talking about. So I've made a number of examples. I think you understand what I mean by systems operability. So it means once you put in information here, it's able to be shared with other systems. It improves communication. I've already demonstrated that. So there's no need for movement. There's no need to pick up a phone to say, do you know this person? Once you put it in, the information goes through. You get the information. And these things happen within a split of a second. It doesn't mean that it's going to take long. Once I put it in, all the system speaks to one another. All of a sudden, it's happening. Like now, I'm talking to you, all of you, under normal circumstances. In the past, when we started with this technology, you would see, I would say something, you would see my lips moving, and only then you would hear the voice. But now the technology has so much improved that it has gone through. And then 4IR has also improved knowledge management. I know most of you, there was a huge buzz around knowledge management in the early 2000s or so. What knowledge management means, it's just that most of the time, knowledge resides in people's head. So what the information I've got, it's my information, it's within me. It's the knowledge I have. That's why I'm invited now to talk to you, because it's my knowledge. But now what technology for IR has done, it has made it such that information now can be stored in a technology, in a microchip. And that's why you are seeing people now complaining to say, yeah, people want us to vaccinate us. When they vaccinate us, they are going to put in a microchip, this microchip. The reality is that it's now possible to put everything about a person in a small microchip. That's the truth of it. So whatever is in my brain can be put into a microchip and be stored. So that's how advanced technology has become. It's just that the only thing that is preventing some of these things in terms of happening, it's ethics. It's what we call ethics. Those of you in higher education, you'll understand that when you do research, you apply for certain things, you apply for ethics clearance for you to be able to do certain things. It's because they are preventing where people are being abused. Because now the reality is that you can actually program a person. That's the reality. What's preventing that to happen is ethics, and they've made it illegal to do certain things. Otherwise, it could have been done. It's not that it's not done. Some people could be doing it secretly somewhere. You know, if you watch those American films, the CIA, and there are a lot of things that people have done. I remember growing up, we used to think that they used to tell us that when you are sentenced to death, you actually don't die. They take you there, they do experiment with you, all of those things. We don't know how true it is, but it's possible. So, but in short, this point, what it says that the whole issue around management, all of a sudden there's nothing called all in knowledge now. It's possible to have public knowledge, everything to become public knowledge. So those things that were called intrinsic knowledge, knowledge that is within me, only me knows about it. It's now possible to make it available to everyone through this technology. Because now, for IR, I'll show you later in terms of how that happens. It has always improved the speed and accuracy. All of these things that now we are supposed to do. I know I'm not going to be popular with catalogers now with what I'm going to say, but that's a reality. This is, we are at a stage where catalogers are, in most countries, catalogers have become what we call a scarce skill. I know in Australia and in America, they even had a special concession whereby because it's a scarce skill, they had a special bursaries to offer people to study metadata, to become metadata specialists, because it was becoming a scarce skill. And the reason being that you had a cohort of catalogers, and all of them are getting old, and they're exiting the system. And the new ones are not getting into cataloging or into metadata because there is no longer a need. Books are now cataloged at publication. Most publishers, when they publish a book, the book is cataloged at publication. So the information is then forwarded to the WorldCat, OCLC, into the WorldCat, and then people download the records from there. But the reality is that in those publishers, we need these metadata specialists. So, but because they are not, there's no high turnover of them, one will work in one company for 40 years. If there is one profession where there is no turnover, it's in cataloging. Most catalogers, they still work where they started working when they started librarianship. Most of them, you know, it's only now that you are beginning to see them moving. There's very slow turnover. But the reality is that immediately lose that experienced cataloger, then it becomes. So, but now, the issue here, what I was trying to highlight, is the whole issue around that now, all of a sudden, we actually, most libraries have almost done away with the cataloging section, because now everything is done and we've seen even the booksellers themselves, the distributors, who have started now what we call shelf-ready books. So what they do, when you buy a book, when it comes to the library, you just take it to the shelves, because it has been cataloged, it has been processed with everything. When I was laughing, because now when Xolela was talking about where I worked, one of the company that I've worked is called Bertram's Books. Although I was working mainly with Dawson's books. It's one of the biggest distributor of books. And that's where I've seen automation in real life. And those are the people who are also able to provide you with shelf-ready books. That company has gone under today. It has gone under business rescue. They've already sold most of its stock. That is a multi-billion, even it used to provide books even from Amazon. You will get a book, you will think the book is coming from Amazon. Remember, that's another technology. When you buy books from Amazon, the system automatically sends a purchase order. It realizes that those Bertram books have this book. It automatically goes to Bertram's. Bertram's, they just process the book. and it goes to courier system. It goes, when you get it, you think you're buying, you got a book from Amazon Books, but the book is actually coming from Bertram Books. So that's how technology, it's what we call EDI. I'm not sure if Monday is here. It's where it's called electronic dissemination of information, EDI. It has an address. So what you punch in here, there's no human interaction. There's nobody who's going to interact with your order. Once I punch it in here, it automatically goes to another computer at the Bertram's or Dawson Books or Erasmus Books. When it gets into that computer sends that purchase order straight to another computer that is going to look at the stock. It picks up, it gets into a RAID, it moves. That book it's taken off the shelf, it moves into an invoicing stage. Another system generates the invoice on its own. That invoice immediately it's sent back to the university or the person who's purchasing the book. So all that thing happens. There is not even a single person who would touch a purchase order from UFS if it has gone through EDI. He would not even touch the book unless the book has to be shelf-ready processed. Then that's when you get human intervention where a person then starts processing the book. But if you are just purchasing a book, once I punch in through EDI, it creates a purchase order. The computer at the supplier, it gets the book, it sends it to the invoicing, it gets invoiced, it sends to the courier, it sends, and then it goes out. So everything, it happens automatically through what you call electronic. So the speed, the turnaround time improves drastically. And lastly, last but one is the issue of self-service. 4IR has introduced self-service. I know that in South Africa, most of the things we still rely on people to assist us or to serve us. But if you go to overseas countries, a number of overseas countries, maybe it's because there's a low unemployment rate or whatever, but most of the things now, what you do, if you go to a supermarket, you just put your grocery on top of your trolley, and then you go to, as you walk out to a station, you just put your grocery on top of, through the station, then you tap your card, it's done. There is no shelf packer, there is no teller who's going to say plastic or credit or what. Everything you do it on your own. Self-service, that's how it is. You would see when you watch your films now also, when you, especially American films, when you go into a garage, you just pour petrol and you leave. There's no petrol attendant, there's nothing. So those things have already happening in the third industrial revolution. In libraries, you would see what we used to call self-checkout and self-check-in, where a user can take a book and then will go to a self-checkout, place his card, put his books, and then off he goes. Those are the actual realities of the technology. But like I'm saying, most of these technologies are already there. They were already there in the third revolution. So let me take you through this diagram of what actually 4IR is. And I'll try, and as I'm talking, that's why I'm trying to make example around libraries so that it becomes relevant. Remember when we're talking about the definition, I mentioned the Internet of Things. I mentioned disruptive technologies, right? Like now, if somebody calls Patsy now and say, Patsy, I'm at the gate at your home. I'm here to pick up something. Patsy is not going to leave his desk and go home to open up the gate for the person so that he can get whatever he needs to get. All she would do, she would punch some few numbers and the gate will open. Right? That's Internet of Things. So if pools and those kind of things, what they would do is hope it runs through. So a lot of things, Internet of Things, it's those things that now we're able to do without being there. So you just give instructions. There are those people who are buying the new Mercedes-Benz. You can actually drive your car whilst you are here. If you forgot to lock your car, you don't need to go back and raise your key next to your car, or on your phone, people can lock their cars, can close their windows, can a lot of other things. You can see where your car is. You can see how much it's driving. If you give it to your child, you can monitor. That's what Internet of Things. So even with our books, those are the things that you should be thinking about. One of the most serious problem for us in higher education is people who are not returning books. And some of them, because especially lecturers, because we give them these books for a long time, for a long term. The tendency is that these books sometimes, because we give them a lot of books for a long term, so because they sometimes work with senior students, or even those who are working special libraries, those people are specialists. When they work with something, they work with it for a long time. So after 3 years or 2 years, somebody doesn't even remember where he placed that book. Just think about it. If we've got a technology that will be able through to detect, you can tell this person, look, I think your book, according to this, according to I'm looking for this term now. It has just gone off my head. Tracking. You can track the book. I can tell you this book is, according to the system, the book is in this address. So it will be able to assist, to help a person to locate, to remember, to say, oh, actually the person who stays there is Charlie. I borrowed Charlie this book. You know, then you can tell to say, hey man, look, this book. So if the person is also linked to the university, is linked to your library system, and the person's address is in the library system, you can say, actually this book is now with this person. Do you remember giving this person the book? You know, those kind of things. Those are the advances that 4IR presents to us. And that's what we call location detection technologies. The very first one I spoke about is IoT, when I made an example with Betsy opening his gate while he's at his office. Then this location detection, these are the technologies currently. And think about it, now we are already moving to where books people are, because now people can't go to libraries. More and more people are making their books electronically available, and also for visually impaired people. So now the technology is such that if you have a relevant gadget, it can pick up that Charlie has a poor 40/50 vision, and it can, sorry. Ew. My battery was leaving me. Let me try and speed up a little bit. So those are the things that are currently happening. And authentication and fraud. We have seen now with, if you go to institutions like your SAPC or your other institutions, where you find that when a person goes in, he must first put his thumb. It would only authenticate this person, then only then do they swipe their card. So what it does, it improves a lot of technique. So now they are in a position, because of the current technology, to store information in a microchip. So when you put in your thumb, it brings everything. A person can see if the picture is the same person. You know, those of you who already travel overseas, you'll see when they now they no longer go through the pages of your passport, asking you silly questions. It shows a lot of information, and it's able to pick up. That's what 4IR does. Because what it does, it goes through Home Affairs. Remember, they are scanning your ID at Washington, D.C. But that scan, within a speed of a second, you are alive, yes, you are a man, yes, you've got a scar. All of those things are already there. Just two days ago, I saw, for instance, some companies in UK, in Israel and some I think Switzerland and somewhere, they are already printing meat. They are printing steak. So 3D printing, it's now in there, you know. So guys and their hearts still like to eat meat. So now they can eat their steak. They do. They print the steak using non-meat. They use some roots and some type of plants to and obviously dye it in such a way that when you look at it, it's a steak, but it's actually not a steak. It's a 3D printing. So when you eat, you think you're eating a steak, but it's actually not a steak. You may even wonder if those of, I'm sorry, McDonald, if you are eating steak or 3D printing. That's already. I'm using the concept service robot because it's very important. Because a robot, it's programming. So what happens is that the system, you program something to do certain things, right? So how do they do this thing called artificial intelligence? The way it happens is that you program something to be able to recognize, let's say, vocabulary, right? So if something is repeated, obviously you won't know what this means. So when the programmers of that robot pick up that when somebody says this, they own, join these words and be able to interpret. That's what we call deep learning. So with deep learning is that the more the vocabulary of this robot increases over time, the more they input new information. That robot on its own now starts making relationship. When you mention Charlie and you mention Molepo and you mention UFS, it's gonna, you mention it once, it won't make sense to the robot. You mention it twice, it starts to form a relationship. You mention a third time, then it says every time when it sees a Charlie, it's gonna try and see if there is a Molepo, there is a UFS. That's what we call deep learning. So that's why then those of you who drive Mercedes and then who have iPhones and who have CV or whatever that name, what her name is, you think is intelligent. What she does is that over time, he learns these things. They become, so for instance, if my car is a quarter tank and is 400 kilometers and I'm at a particular place, it can now calculate that from here, it can go to your Google map and see that the next garage is 45 kilometers. And your quarter tank, it says it can run for 80 kilometers. This thing would, when you say, CB, how, where can I reach my next garage with this petrol? It's gonna go to that map and calculate, and then it says, yes, you can actually reach the next garage with the petrol tank, with your current petrol tank. So that is what we call deep learning. So think about it also in our libraries. Those are the things that we should be thinking about. For instance, obviously it might not be us, but people developing library systems. Because the main important thing now with technology is that as we're moving away from physical books to electronic books, we should be able to, for instance, one of the most disturbing thing or troubling thing with electronic books is that, because now we're trying to make them like physical books, we check them out. So if you check it out, the book is checked out for 21 days, right? But this person is reading it for 1 day. Unlike a physical book, when a person has finished reading can say, okay, I'm not going to wait for 21 books and bring it back. That book will still remain checked out to that person for 21, even though he's not using it. But with artificial intelligence, what you can do, you can actually set it up so that if this book is not in use for more than certain hours, can this book be automatically returned? So those are the technologies that we should be looking at as librarians. The other thing that we should also look at, we've got quite a lot of what we call differentially abled users. So we should be looking at those things, you know. Like now, it's no longer a struggle to get an audio book, you know. Actually, it's even easy to convert, to digitize audio print, from print to audio, so that we are able to assist our users. Those things happen automatically. It's no longer something. I remember when I started being a librarian at the university, we used to send the books to, every time we buy a book, we send it to the Library of the Blind, where somebody is going to sit down and reading. And I remember also did volunteer to read. So you'll get a situation where, but now the technology is that you can actually working from home. And then where now the technology is you purchase something, it's easy to convert it immediately. And because you are not converting it for distribution, some of the copyright protocols you are able to subvert, not because you are not doing for redistribution or for redistribution, but you are actually making it accessible to somebody who's visually impaired or whatever. We now have got gadgets whereby if the publisher makes it available, you can actually what we call visual reality books. So somebody would put in those gadgets. Instead of reading the book, you can actually listen to a book, and if there are visuals, you can actually watch. So as we purchase, as we buy resources in libraries, can we also look at that? What is available out there? I know especially for medical schools, that has already arrived in their text. Most of their textbooks already have those capabilities where people can actually view. So if you look at the heart, you know, you can actually watch how the heart operates, how it works. You can actually touch a particular thing, and then you can see how it reacts, you know. So you can actually operate a person on the screen. You can, what we call assimilation. A lot of those things are already there in the market. So as we build our collection as librarians, let us look out, especially those things that are not real books. You know, it could be interactive information, whatever. So when we buy, let us look what is out there. You know, there's nothing prevent. I think one of the few things that we need to learn again is what we call RFIs, request for information. I think we must move away from buying. You know, the one thing about librarians are extra careful. So one of the frustrating especially for me as an IT person, IT oriented person, is when people say, where is that thing working? Where do you want to see it working if you don't try it yourself? You know, those are so for you to buy something, you must see it working somewhere else. And that's not innovation. You can't have innovation if you want to see it working somewhere else. You must make it work so that that's the thinking. So we should move away from looking for things where they've worked. We must actually say, like I'm saying, issue out an RFI, send it out, send something, request for information. Say, I am looking for this. It must be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't need to know how the person, the engineers, they would think to say, okay, let's try this. Then they'll come back to you and say, we have tried this. This is what can work. So I think as an industry, we must begin to push more for RFIs. Those industries where they push for RFIs, request for information, you would see them growing more than those who normally request for code. When you request for code, you already know what you are looking for. That's why you would say, I want something that is able to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. And because you have seen it where you can even say it must comply with the standard, it must comply with the standard, it must comply. It's something that has already happened somewhere. That's 3IR. That's 3IR. You can't in 4IR be saying that. In 4IR, you should be saying, I want a system that can do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then a person has to develop it for you. You might be the first person. You might be the first library to have that thing. That's the most important thing that you should be thinking about. So the whole issue around deep learning, like I'm saying with the robot, just to go back to the slide, what the technology does now, which is different from 3IR. In 3IR, we would put in something into the system will store it, and we would retrieve it. That was a third industrial. So we put the information, we store it, and then we retrieve it. But in the 4IR, the system scan the environment, or in whatever we put in, the system interprets and analyzes it, and sometimes feeds us the information without us pulling it out. That's what in the third IR, we used to call it push technology. Something, the information comes to you, you don't even have to ask for it. So those are the things that comes with 4IR. So I'm not going to dwell much on the robots and other things, but most of these things, you must just go to the internet, search for these things. The issue about image recognition, some of you already have those kind of phones, whereby your own phone must recognize your face before it opens. Obviously, it comes with its own problem. Some recognizes the voice. If you call now, some service providers, they've got what we call voice authentication. So when you say something, you have to say something, it recognizes your voice. This is Charlie. Yes, you can go ahead. But obviously, it comes with its own problem. When you've got flu and all of those things, and it doesn't recognize you, and then so you need to have alternative when your voice is not. That's why, for instance, with the issue of image recognition, it also should allow you to use password in case you get beaten up and it doesn't recognize your face. You want to call the ambulance, or if you are in an accident and then all of a sudden you are disfigured and then it doesn't recognize you, you should be able to authenticate via alternative. That's a bad thing about presenting while you don't see the people, they don't see you. But this was meant to be sort of break the ice right in the middle, because now we have been talking about heavy stuff, you know. If you look at these two people, you can see that they are very young. Eh? They are around 18 or 20. Okay, they look old, very old. So this person, what he says, and this is the reality. If you think about the data that we put in on our systems, that data, now, for instance, we've got this thing, that is called POPI Act. It has been, I think a month ago, it has been signed into law. Now, if you get somebody's data, it's your responsibility to ensure that the data is secure. In the past, you would secure the data because you were trying to hide it from your competitors. You don't want your competitors to have the information about your clients and about your suppliers. But now it's law. You know, if you've got data, like now on our library system, we put people's name, ID numbers, and all of those things. It's our responsibility that we must make sure that the data is secure. Nobody must hack our library system. And so sometimes, because what we normally do to do that, when they develop technology, they develop in such that it develops something that we call encryption. I'm not sure if you have seen, you guys, those who are on WhatsApp, when you downloaded WhatsApp said to you, the information that you are sharing is encrypted. So it means that nobody else can hack and be able to see your system except the person you are sending the message to. That was done by WhatsApp because it wants more people, because it doesn't want government to watch over what I'm talking about. If you remember the Arab of Spring, where the youth led the uprising in the Arab world, they were using WhatsApp as communication, and government was unable to see what people were talking about. That's encryption. So in this picture, in this cartoon, what you see now, this old man is saying to the secretary, obviously I assume is the secretary, they must be at work, it's not the wife, is that they are putting this data in a code format. So when you code something, you are replacing Charlie with something, with a code. So that it's only you who knows that when I see this code, I see Charlie, you know. It's something similar to when you look at sign language. When I watch sign language people, I almost, I always wonder, but that's a coding. It's sort of a code language because the person understands when this person does this, it means this. It's a code. So when data, when it's stored, to protect it, you can't store it the way you would store normal. So if I put in your ID numbers, I would replace, in my machine, I would replace your ID numbers with a code so that somebody else, when he hacks my system, he may not see your ID number, even though he can get the code, but he might not know what this code means. So this old man says, we put this data into a code so that our competitors cannot read it, or any person who's not unauthorized cannot read it. You know? But the reality is that, if you remember what I said earlier on about knowledge management, if that the information is not stored somewhere to say, this is how you access information, that would mean if the person who has stored the code dies, decide to die or decide to visit his elders, what's going to happen is that that code is lost because nobody else will be able to retrieve the code. So it's very important that when you store data, you must also indicate. For instance, we have seen now in higher education or in research institution, they are beginning to store research data. And when you store research data, the protocols, there's a protocol that talks to the data that you store. You should also give the the system. This is a system you use to collect it. This is a system you use to analyze it. And this is how you have analyzed it. So that even if I want to replicate your research, I should be able to do it because now I know this is a system. Because some systems become obsolete, so that then I can be able to tell the people to say, look, this data this is how it was collected. It was collected using this kind of a system. Then people can be able to transfer that data to another system for its longevity. So that's the most important thing. So every time when the data is stored, while you encrypt it to secure it, make sure that the protocol of encryption is stored somewhere. Obviously, now it's quite easy. For instance, in our university registrar is the owner of the university records. So that could be the place. Our CFO is CIO, Chief Information Officer, in this case, our Senior Director, ICT, might be given a responsibility to store all codes. And normally they are stored offsite in three different places. So that at the end of the day, even if the CIO dies, we know that there is an area where we can go and be able to store, to retrieve the data. So these are some of the gadgets that we find in our libraries in terms of 4IR. These are just the self-service machines. The middle one, you can see it has everything, including payments, including checking out, checking in, and obviously it can also communicate. The other two are just simply the self-checkout systems. These systems, right, I've just selected these ones. They can be huge, they can be large, they can be automation. For instance, some big universities, some big libraries, where you find that when you return on the Dropbox, the RFID system allows the sorting. It sorts them out, it takes that book, it gets into the rails, it goes to the actual floor where it's going to be shared. Or sometimes if you've got different boxes, it's sorted in those different boxes, and then those boxes go to different. So these are different, but what it means is that everything can be automated. Everything that is done by a human being now. If you think about it now, if we had invested on RFID, we shouldn't be worrying now about opening libraries, because all we needed to do was going to be a security at the door to ensure that, and people, to make sure that people, there's social distancing. But people, what we're doing, they'll be checking the books themselves out, they'll be checking the books themselves in, the books themselves will be shelving themselves. We wouldn't be worrying about books. That's if we had invested. Like I'm saying, if you think about it, RFID technology is very old. It's almost 20 years now. But because as libraries, as I've said before, we tend to say, where is it working? Some, you know, if you think about it, some libraries have been, not libraries, even dry clean. Companies that does dry cleaning, they've been using RFID for as way, where they do laundry for big companies. You would see those laundries, if you can maybe just Google and watch laundry, big laundry, you would see hangers moving, others going to the left, others going to the right. That thing that sorts, it's because it picks up that this goes to this company, this one goes to this company. All of that's RFID technology. It has always, it was linking 3 revolutions. It was linking the electronic one, and then linking with the technology one, the mechanical technology, and with an IT, linking with the third, which is RFID technology. All of those technologies were coming together and doing that. This robot, it's in one of the Malaysian libraries. What it does, it's also is just a simple RFID technology. It does shelving. When the library closes in the evening, the robot is set free, and it goes through the library. It does the shelving and the shelf reading. And obviously, the library was built in early 2000s. So if you think about it, our shelves are not earmarked for this kind of activity. So even us, when we then what it means is that if we go for a robot like this one, it means we have to do what I've said earlier on, do an RFI and tell people to say, we've got old shelves that looks like this, they've got this height, and we require you to develop a robot for us that will be able. So our robot needs, you may find that our robot needs to be more flexible than this rigid one. So those are the kind of things that you can think about. Lastly, as I've indicated earlier on that robots, 4IR technology, any technology, whether it's the first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, third, all of them meant that some people will be losing their jobs. But actually, the only people who are losing jobs is those people who are not learning the new skill or doing certain things. All it means is that there are certain types of jobs that will never be replaced by a technology. Maybe the fifth IR, when it comes, we don't know. But in terms of 4IR, artificial intelligence cannot create. It cannot create something. So if you need something created, you need a human being. To create a robot, you need a human being. To create something, you need a human being. It cannot conceptualize COVID. That's why now, every day we are learning something new about, because now only human being can conceptualize that this disease is doing this based on this and that and that. So the conceptualization of a problem cannot happen on its own by a machine. So you still need a person to conceptualize. So you still need a professional librarian to conceptualize things. You need a manager to conceptualize. You need somebody to manage a planning, strategic planning. You can't give it to a machine and say, can you do a strategic plan for the library for the next coming 5 years? It's not going to do it. You need a human being. So those jobs, any management job is still secured for the next coming number of years, unless we beyond fifth industrial revolution. But even then, somebody has to think, has to conceptualize something, has to plan. So any management jobs cannot be taken over by artificial intelligence. So in short, you cannot employ a robot to be a manager, period. You cannot, artificial intelligence cannot do a complex work that require eye coordination. I'm looking for an example. Like now, you can see my face when I'm start thinking or frowning or getting angry. Although some of the facial expression, some machines can read them, but certain things that require eye movement, where you look at this and you look at that things and then make a relationship immediately, it becomes impossible for an artificial. If you have seen example of Libby, that robot at the University of Pretoria, a person must look at the screen and say, Libby, where is, if I'm talking to Libby and taking a book, putting behind my back and leaving, Libby won't see that Charlie has taken a book and is leaving without checking it out. So there are certain things that are only done by human eye that a machine cannot do, or what you call artificial intelligence cannot do. So those jobs will remain. Circulation staff job will never, customer service desk will never, I don't want to say circulation because it's not about circulation. Customer service desk, where a person interacts with the users, that desk will never go away because it requires a human being. You remember now when I showed you earlier on the robot that's doing shelving. That robot, for it to do that work that it needs to do, the floor must be flat. The shelves must be a particular height, and it must know upfront the books are in this level and that level and that level. So immediately it becomes unstructured. Remember, with your human eye, you can see that there is a step here, and then you lift your leg, you go up the stairs, and then here it's going this. So everything for artificial intelligence, think of Libby. Libby can't go up the stairs, he maybe get into a lift. I don't know if he can press the buttons and all of those things, but it has to be a structured thing. He must be programmed to be able to do those things. He cannot do them on their own. So anything which is not structured, it can't be done by artificial. Human beings still have to do. So if you think about a career, always make sure that your career, it's not something that is structured, that can be done by routine. Once any job that is routine, it can be replaced. One of the most important thing about human being is it's the issue of feeling, interacting, have empathy, have compassion. You cannot replace human beings. That's why if you watch your videos of robots and other things, and you talk to your phone, you talk to your car, you can see that they don't have the feeling. They tell it like it is. They don't care. They tell you are not going to reach a destination. It's not going to say, hey, why don't you call your sister to give you, to bring you petrol, or it's just raw data. It has no, it doesn't have thinking, it has no feeling, it has no sympathy. If you can't check out a book because let's say there are certain things that normally when you're in circulation you come across. Let's say, for instance, if the barcode it's damaged and the person tries to scan a book on a self-checkout, if that barcode is not being scanned, it's not scannable, it's done, that person is not going to get a book. The machine is not going to have an empathy. But if there's a human being, he would be able to say, okay, can I see? Okay, maybe I can punch the numbers themselves because now the barcode is damaged. Then he can, there's a human interaction. All of those things, those are the realities. You cannot replace that. And there are libraries where everything is self-automated. But the reality is that you still need the person who will be able to assist a person to locate a book. Because if there is no person to assist that person, the person will feel despondent. He will not be able to find what he's looking for. So these are the kind, so when you develop yourself, think about it. These are the kind of jobs that will never be replaced by artificial intelligence. That's where I would end my short talk on artificial intelligence. In short, as libraries, we should spend time on investing in technologies regardless what we want to, whether we need it now or we don't need it now. The reality is that we are going to need it. So let's invest on things. Let's invest on technology. Right, just on a few things that I've picked up now. I've just opened up on the chat room because I've stopped. One of the things I see, Betsy is laughing at Brechta. And I see Leanda is agreeing with the McDonald patties. But one of the most important things that you need to do as libraries, maybe let's start there, things that we can do now immediately. Those small libraries, let's start investing on 3D printing. Let's start investing on RFID technology. Let's start investing on virtual reality gadgets. They are not expensive. Some of them are around 20,000 or so, you know. Even if you've got one, you know, then you can start. Then you can start asking people. You can start asking Microsoft, can you develop a virtual reality that can read a book for a visually impaired person? Can you develop, you know, those things? Let us be trendsetters. Let us ask them. Let us not wait for them. Because remember, we are the one who need these things. We must tell them what we need, and then they will develop them. The problem with us librarians is that we want them, we wait for them to develop this thing and say, librarians, here are the things you need. No, we must tell them this is what we need, and then they will develop them. Kamuhelo is asking if I've tasted a 3D steak. Kamuhelo, don't think about it. Don't make it far-fetched. I grew up because I was an activist, I ended up in a boarding school of a Seventh-day Adventist in the Eastern Cape. They don't eat meat at all. But they would have, and if you go to some shops like Pick and Pay, you would find those. They've got Viennas, they've got sausages, they've got burgers that are soya products. So what they do, they use soya, but they design it like it looks like a Vienna, but it's not a Vienna. Some of them do taste like meat. Maybe sometimes it's because your heart tells you it's meat, you know. But even with that, with a 3D steak, they still use soya and other products. They make it look like meat, and it will taste like meat if you want it to taste like meat. With Hesma saying, with wearing mask, my phone does not recognize me. Again, exactly. That's why then you would be able to punch the password. That's what I was saying earlier on, that authentication, you must make sure, while 3IR with Internet of Things come with those things, but you must be able, the good thing about it is that it has what we call multi-authentication. If one authentication doesn't work, your fingerprint doesn't work, you can put your password and all of those things. Madiba is controversial. FBI wants to crack our data. To be honest with you, Monde, everybody, data is, they say data is the most expensive commodity now. Everybody, and if you have a child, tell your child to study computer science, data. That's a profession that is growing. And as a profession that is gonna, and even you young people, even now, you can start learning about data. Data is the new gold. Remember, we come from where it say information. We come from information economy. Now we're moving to data economy. Everybody wants to crack data. Have you seen recently, America is trying to discourage American in using TikTok. There's an app called TikTok because they say TikTok is Chinese are storing data. I mean, like, to be reality, in reality, everybody, any social media people, if you don't want your data, if you don't want people to know where you are, if you don't want people to know what you are eating, don't enter social media. When you enter social media, the what we call deep learning, the one I was that scheme I was showing you, the system reads you. When I do a search now and say vitamin C, vitamin D, COVID-19, when you go to Facebook or anywhere, all of a sudden you will start seeing anything about COVID-19 will come up, will go up. Some people's advertising their concoction will come up. People selling pills for COVID will come up. Because now all of a sudden your data has been shared with other people that this person is interested in COVID. If you, for instance, now I'm staying in Springs. When I travel to Bloemfontein, all of a sudden when I'm searching something, I'll only see things from Bloemfontein, not things from. But when I'm in Springs, I'm seeing things from Springs. It's because my data, somebody has sold that data to say Charlie is in Springs now. Sell him the sugar, sell him the bicycle, sell him the what. It recognizes you. So your phone, that's why when you enter, when you do any app, they ask you, do you allow this to pick up your location, to allow this to do this, to allow this. When you do that, because you want to have this app, but this app is selling your data to somebody else. So if you don't want people to know where you are, what you're doing, you don't need to be on social media. If you're on social media, they know where you are. Please tell the automatic help desk about empathy. Yeah, unfortunately, you cannot. Empathy, it's like I've said, anything that requires human feelings, thinking, conceptualization, it can do, robot can do problem solving, but it should be problem that has been there before. If it's something new, it cannot conceptualize. So always think about it. Kecho asking that, is 5G an important platform for IR? Please elaborate. Sure. 5G is like 4G, like 3G. It's just like it's faster. I don't want to get into politics that it causes cancer and all of those things. Radio frequency causes cancer. Your microwave, that's why they discourage you cooking using microwave, because it causes cancer. Everything, technology. But the reason why people think that 5G causes cancer is because the radio frequencies are quite high, and it's much closer to you, unlike the ones, you know, where they are far away from people. 5G ones, most of them, they are nearer. The answer to your question, Kecho, it's yes and no. It's yes because 5G just makes 4IR much more faster and accurate. No, in a sense that it doesn't mean that if you don't have 5G, you cannot have artificial intelligence, you cannot have Internet of Things. As I've shown example with if you think about it, your gates into estates and those kind of things. I remember my brother was a CEO of a company in Nigeria. He was building a house in Midrand. The builders, he was able to do everything with the builders while he was in Nigeria. He would just punch in his phone, open the gate, close the gate, activate the alarm. All of those things, 5G was not there. But it was possible to do it. So in short, any technology for IR can be used. And the only thing about 5G, it just makes it much more faster. T. Smith says, I believe that as we progress through the fourth industrial revolution, we see our libraries change significantly, but they remain the integral part of any successful university. Yeah, but guys, I'm gonna repeat this. Our libraries today, we don't have RFID, and it's technology that is 20 years old. Why? We are very conservative as librarians. We are very conservative. We're not innovative. we're not people taking risk. Why? I'm pushing now. I'm pushing you guys. I'm pushing higher education library interest group. I'm pushing LISLIG. Guys, let us be innovative. Let us go out. Let's. If we think of something, let's ask people. If we think about something, let's ask people to say, we want something like this. Can you develop something like this? Because an RFI is not a commitment. You're not making a commitment to somebody to say, I'm going to give you business. We are just saying to people, develop something for us. Let us be that kind. So I'm pushing guys, I'm pushing us. Let us embrace technology. Let us not wait. The problem with us is that maybe the other thing that we find ourselves, because in one of the institutions I used to work for, UKZ, and we're doing what we call zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting, you as a department, you tell the university to say, this is how much I need because of this and that and that. I know that most of our ICT departments in our organization are very difficult people, but I still say, let's push as libraries. And I think I've covered all questions that I've seen in comments, except, or Elma says, Recon project was established to transfer cast systems to, obviously you have those working dictionary, working encyclopedia like Elma. They even know when cards in particular. That's what we call institutional memory. Those people are very important, institutional memory. And now, when Elma leaves the University of the Free State, this information is gone with Elma. That's what we call knowledge management. But if we take Elma's brain and put it in a microchip, we can store it for later use. Yes, that will be my last comment. Thank you very much for giving me time to make this presentation. I thank you.
With that said, Charlie, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts, the information you've given to us. And I think you have made most librarians to allay their feeling that they are going to lose their jobs. This is well said. Nobody could say it more than you said, because you know what libraries are like. You've been in the system. Thank you so much. And bringing it home to everyone to understand that improving your skills or taking a turn into another field will not be waste of money or waste of time. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Charlie, thank you for being our rock. I mean, as the Free State branch, and I also want to thank the two interest groups, LISLIG and HELIG, for organizing this workshop for us, to enlighten us, especially in this season where we work from home and yet we still have to make our services available to our users. This topic is so relevant, and I think it's a call for all of us to explore better ways, so that in future we are also able to say, this division, this is how you employ 4IR, in how you offer services to your clients. I'm really grateful for what both teams have done, and thank you, Charlie, for presenting to the team. I see a lot of people are attending. I see we have 35 people attending this meeting, which is a good number for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeanette. And again, I think as colleagues, we don't need to be overwhelmed. Yes, I will share the slides. I will send it to Anna Marie, the PowerPoint. But one thing that I can say, I'll put in also my email address and contact details should one want to engage further on certain things. So please feel free, because we have been forced into this environment, and unfortunately we need to excel. We need to excel in it. We don't have an excuse, and we must not feel overwhelmed. We are all librarians by nature. We are working as a group. That's why if you look at all old consortiums, were formed by librarians. Librarians interact. So even if you're sitting alone in a library somewhere, don't feel overwhelmed. If your CEO or your manager asks you something and you are not sure, don't feel overwhelmed. Just send an email to us. Let's share. I think that's the most important thing I want to highlight. And that's what makes us different from machines. We should always be there. Thank you.
Okay, so you can look.
This then concludes the meeting. Thank you for all the participants, and Mr. Molepo, thank you so very much for your input. It was very valuable. All of you have a nice day.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
very much, colleagues. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.